Hello everyone, this is Ali Merge, and within this video I will be presenting branding and design evaluation series. I'll continue those series. Previously we were addressing the automotive field. I was evaluating Polestar car as well as Nevera Rimac, and I was focusing on one product per video. Here in architecture field, what I'm going to do is I will select a set of websites of different architecture firms, and I'll be addressing them through free expertise fields that I'm holding, which are brand identity, interface design, and web development. But we will be evaluating all three areas through the website of architecture firms. Now, it took quite a time to find a good examples, and I'm choosing and presenting work that I believe is worth paying attention to as a professional and trustworthy degree, and I will be giving my perspective. Now we'll go through 5 of them, and next video will be also focusing on other 5, and we'll have a lot of stuff to explore. At the same time, I'll be pointing out where they have space to improve, but overall they are great. We will not be evaluating their architecture. We'll be evaluating brand identity, interface design, and web development. Now here right away what we see is the first firm of architecture that I'm presenting here. So right away, let's just start it. So we see the full image footage here, and there's a great thing for architecture. It's always go the full size, massive, because we want to see the detail. At the same time, I would say what we see here is a beautiful, well done, high quality footage of the nature, details, and the landscape. So you would question, well, we would like to see architecture. And that's a good idea actually, because that's what you sell. That's what we want people to see and understand right away. Nevertheless, I must say, this is quite a unique approach that they have here. Even though we would not recommend to show video that is not really communicating anything about the product that you offer, it still gives this kind of signature for them that we experience here. It says it's their signature of high quality specific footage that makes you to be compelled to go through the website and to memorize them. Another thing that I want to point out is that we don't see any titles, any names, any label of architecture or name of the brand or description. That's their approach, and it might be deliberate. They're actually really short on word. They show the visuals, and that's what you want in architecture. Also, in respect to brand identity, we can see the logo. And I must say that many architect firms not really having any icon or logo. They tend to go with name and surname and title of architecture. And that might not serve them well in a competitive landscape. Also, in a customer's minds. You want to be memorable and recognizable. Here, this is why I'm choosing this website first, is because they actually did a good job. We see that it's easy to identify that this is E. It's minimal, but the point that it passes all requirements of logo is that it's memorable, recognizable. If you scale it down and up, we will identify that whatsoever, and it respects black and white. The point is that if you will put this logo in a sea of other competitors, their brands, you will recognize this instantly. They don't rely on you reading name and surname or anything. It's instant recognition of the mind by the visual, and that's what makes you to stand out and be unique. And you're just going to remain in their minds, and they'll speak the word. So that's already makes you to stand out. And I recommend to have a logo for any architecture company in order to compete in the marketplace and just be memorable in the customer minds. Now, let's go further. So we're compelled with the footage. As I said, it might be a good idea to show the video of architecture, but it might be kind of makes sense, so to say. So this, I do understand that this is a signature and memorable effect on us. But if we'll go further down, we're right away going to come to the best work that we see here in architecture. Again, you can see the short on word, the whole focus on visuals, on photography. And again, I must say that it's the most important thing is to have a best photography, and they up to date, they're modern. You can see that best photography of your work put on website of latest and the best. So that's how you can win. You can also see me, myself, actually, I must say that I was an architect in the past for 4 years in practice. Right now, I'm holding about 80 years of experience in brand identity, interface design, and web development. But having that expertise behind my back and being familiar with this field practically, as well as photography, they respected the photographer. It did an amazing job, and the organization and selection of angle and color and composition is so well done. You can see that and we know when you take a photography of a bigger scale elements like architecture, buildings, They respected this parallel vertical lens respect. So that is well thought. The composition, the arrangement, and the light, the selection of the daytime, everything is so well. Sharpness, the contrast, perfectly done. That's what you want. You want to show the best work and real work. And again, maybe guys, some of you have better eye than I do. Maybe there are some elements of 3D, but I choose to believe this is a real product. If we go deeper, you will see the whole product, the whole project. So I choose to believe that this is real, and that's what you want to show. You want to show real work. Some firms show the renders, the 3D models, and so on. I would recommend to go with real deal. That's what your customers want to see and experience. We'll go deeper into one of those, but before that, I want to say also another thing from brand identity and composition is really well done in respect to this proper white line margin. And also the 2/3 and 1/3 selection of photography. And again, the selection of photography is also important in scale and composition in respect to each other. Well selected, well done. Let's go further now. You see also that architects tend to fall in love with the all work that they do. A lot of firms actually tend to show all work that they do. And I understand we love our brand, we love what we do. It's our baby. And that can be also a trouble for us because we tend to think subjectively and want to show everything that we do. But actually we have to think from the customer perspective. We want to solve the problem and present the best work we have. So these guys don't really repeat that mistake. They actually selected best work they have, work that they would like to repeat with their customers and do something similar or better. And this is what they want to attract, what they want to attract their customers with. Select the featured products, show that. There's no need to show the old work you have. That is why in their website, they don't really need to have any filtering or searching system in order to define any product. At the same time, when we go to the bottom, we see no call to action, intense call to action. And architects tend to go this classical, relatively classical way, which I think it's a great signature of architecture field, that you just go with a simple contact us with an email or phone number, and that's good enough. Also, the first time we're seeing their brand of architecture and the name below. Now, let's go deeper into one of those websites. And also, before we'll go to, not websites, the product. So before we go to the product, I want to also show again, speaking of minimalistic and just as short as they can with respect to the customer, they have just 3 options: Works, Studio, and Use. And we'll go to Studios later on. So that's as simple as that. Also, it's professionally done. I don't see any mistake in the coding or any kind of inconsistencies in respect to the design user experience. So that reminds me a little bit of Polestar, a product that we observed when there's attention to detail and respect to all digital touch points to make sure that you're actually extending your expertise of architecture into the digital point and have that same consistency, high level of professional and trustworthy degree. Now, going deeper into one of the product that they have, that's another thing that I want to say. Right away we get in, and what we see here is that again, there's a tendency for architecture to expand, to show the whole process, all thinking process, plans, sections, sitemaps, a lot of text of description. And that can be overdone. Work is overdone. It's not really needed to do. There are many things that you don't really need to do, I think. We already impressed the customer, so it might not be in vain to do extra job. But that could be done only because, for some reason, maybe we want to show, and I'll be talking in the next product. In the next project, I'll be pointing out. But here, these guys didn't repeat that mistake. They go simple and to the point. They have title, 1 paragraph of description, and some basic information that you might need to know. The whole focus that they have is a visual, and that's what you want in architecture. Visual demonstration of real product. Full size, and even you could see that the photography is not even the screen size. It's bigger than the screen size because that makes sense. They show high photography quality, well done selection, and the whole attention is also, we want customer or user to have this immersive, compelling experience, experiencing themselves as if they are in the scene and experiencing the every detail, seeing and breathing the whole process. That's all you want to do. You want to show them that. And they already got us. They already win as a customer. For me, from my perspective, it's enough. I go to the landing page. I'll be back here. You go to the landing page. You identify them. You recognize them instantly. You see the footage of signature that is impressive and compelling. We see right away best work done, real work, well composed. We enter any of those. We see short description if we want to read it. By the way, respect of the margin and frame is really a signature, minimalistic signature. And beauty of photography is their brand identity part. So, and we immersively experience the whole thing that they built, and we see further, well composed, well organized, and I'm already willing to work with these architects. That's all. That's all you need to show, actually, if you think about it, and see it's a real product. So if we go further, the only thing that I would recommend them to improve, and there's a space for improvement, is this part, for example, that sometimes photography might not fit in to the full height, and that is because of course, it's hard to predict everything. Nevertheless, the solution here is a coding part. So the point is this container should be respecting the height of the other image and will fill in the full size. And the image within that container should actually fill in 100%. So it always will be full size. And that will allow them to sustain that beautiful clean look and feel. And I understand there might be loss of details if you will do that, but I think we'll not lose that much of a detail if we'll do so. At least it'll sustain us professionally and trustworthy image. It's the only thing that I would recommend to improve, but nevertheless, great selection of composition of color and distancing and details. Amazing job of footage and photography and composition user experience for the whole thing. Now, one more thing that I want to show about them is to talk about their studio. If we go to the studio, what do we see here? Is that we enter, and I like this shift, and it's deliberate decision, I believe. We right away see this image, not of the team of all people, but we see this kind of sneak peek into this black and white. It shows that it's behind the scenes, and it looks like it's a sneak peek into their office behind the glass. And you see that we don't really see people. We see the back of the person. We see behind the bush and computer another person working on. It's interesting. It feels like we're sneaking peeking into the process. And again, they're respecting proper framing and this beautiful detail. What I also want to see that architects tend to not to extend their consistency and quality into the digital touchpoints like websites. Because architecture, if you think about it, architecture is user experience of space, materiality. You play with different rules, regulations, ergonomics, respecting the illumination, respecting the location on the site, you name it. Same with the website. It's user experience, but of information and navigation, the call to action, the problem solving and standing out, and you name it. So architects tend to ignore the fact that they should continue. They tend to not to continue their architectural and structural presentation that they do, and the professional degree that they have on their websites and in their field of architecture and the products that they do. Build architecture, interior design. They have a well-done structural architectural approach, but they don't tend to extend and demonstrate that level through the digital touchpoints like websites. But these guys do respect that. They look architecturally structured and respecting the ratio and so on. That's what I noticed. This is why I'm selecting this website as the first. Also, again, photography and quality is really well. The only thing that I would recommend to improve in respect to the hierarchy is to make the title of the person, the name is, let's see, the height of the title should be bigger than the body of the description and maybe even bolder. And the margin between elements should be increased for the composition of more professional look and feel. And the hierarchy is important for readability. So that's the only thing that I could improve in order to demonstrate that high expertise that I hold as an architect. All right, guys, that's all I want to show about this firm, and we'll continue now to the next one. What we see here right away is that we see the architectural building behind of us, and that makes sense. That's what you actually would expect from architecture firm to see right away work that they show. Nevertheless, I must say, me exploring all work that they did, most of the work, they could select better photography here for impression. Other things that I want to say here right away here is that I'll be pointing out, let's actually talk about brand identity. So as I was mentioning, that the name and surname might not be a good idea to go with. And I always recommend to have some kind of icon or logo that will make it memorable and recognizable for you. Because you rely on people reading the title, and you're actually losing an opportunity to stand out in a competitive landscape by being instantly recognized by the mind of your user or prospect, potential customer. Now, we'll continue further. I'll be pointing out a couple interesting things where they could improve. Nonetheless, again, I want to say that all of them do the good job in respect to showing the work, real work, up front, rather than showing something that is not done or not clear or rendered and so on. So they're really taking us into the full-size photography. That is a good approach. They could improve the selection of photography in order to create a compelling effect. Maybe even video footage can be playing in the background. Nevertheless, when we go further, you can see when I scroll down, you can see that we changed, and I believe this is a featured, and you can see that's what I do. So I'm going to scroll quickly. You can see the brown background is appearing. This is what I'm going to point out in a coding perspective, because the image that we're actually revealing is still loading, or not really loaded completely. And that's the problem, because that doesn't really show you a professional in that degree. and trustworthy. And I would say I will be pointing out of them being outdated a little bit. There's a space for improvement in that. Being more up to date is important. And technically speaking, in coding perspective, I want to point out from my expertise that I hold is that in order to avoid this unloaded images and creating confusing effect and waiting for it to load, and you not will get that compelling effect that you're after, you have to select those photos in a coding format and tell those photo images to be preloaded. They should be loaded as we enter the website. And when we'll be scrolling right away, there will be no glitch or a moment when we see the brown background without imagery being loaded. It's a recommendation how to go around that. That's what this should be paying attention to. But the point is, this is how it should be. When you scroll, there will be no brown effect. It will be clean scroll through, and that's what they wanted to achieve. What I want to say also in respect to photography, I think these works might be a little bit out of date and older, so photography might not be well done. Nevertheless, what my recommendation would be is to select, I suspect these are featured projects. We'll go deeper down below and you'll see the whole list of the projects, but here's like a featured ones. I would say for the featured, it should be up-to-date photography and well-done selection of composition and contrast, and you name it, in order to make this compelling effect for us to want to go and explore those products. Another thing that I want to say is that, from the user experience perspective, learn more. For example, I'm not sure where I'm going to go. I believe I'll go to the list, but okay, I want to click it, but I'll lose the track. And then I go further. I feel like if I'll go here, I believe this is the project that they want to explore me, that they want the user to explore. If I'll click it and I'm curious, I will lose the track of where I have been and so on. I think that may be a little bit uncomfortable to lose the track and user experience. It could be done better. There's a way to improve that. Nevertheless, the idea is great. It's unique. It makes them to stand out with this effect. That's what they wanted to achieve, and I think that's a great choice. In comparison to the previous website that we were talking with you, their work is just up to date and modern, and the photography is just well organized. I recommend to this brand to actually follow the same principle in order to make a compelling effect. Now, if we go further, so if we go down below long enough, we will get to the point where you see how brown effect is not really impressive. It loses orientation a little bit. So we have this line, a subline as a sub menu that actually, once we get to the top, are going to tick and follow us, sticks and follow. And that's the filtering system. And that's what I want to point out here. You can see that now we got to the point after featured projects, we see the whole list of the work that they did. And I say, that's what I was pointing out, that they show all work that they have. You can see how massive a list is. And again, it might be a good idea if you want to track all work that you did as an archive format. Nevertheless, it can serve you poorly because customers will be overwhelmed and they will lose the track and interest in and not really understanding where they should go. They would like to explore many, but they feel like there's a lot of stuff to explore and can be overwhelming. So my recommendation in this case from user experience, actually to separate. If you want to have a track on a whole collection of your archived projects, create some kind of archived category of your website where people can go and you can go and find everything that you did, maybe organized by year, filtered by year as well. It's a good idea. But for the customer, you should put some kind of set of featured projects that you want them to see in order to impress them and attract right audience and work on the better projects that you will wish to work upon further. So that's why I think the first brand did a great job about that. They didn't overwhelm us with the work, and they just show the best they want you to see. And they don't even show the archived work. They keep it for themselves indeed. So there's no need to give it public. Nevertheless, if you go this way, I will recommend to separate archive system from the customer impressive featured project system. So, but nevertheless, what I want to say in this case is a good idea because they have a lot of projects to explore. They do have a filtering system in place. So you can actually sort them by A to Z. And you can do actually what I had done my work. You can check my YouTube where I have cruising and tours project that I did. And I did the blogging system where actually you can choose any system of organization, any filtering system. And here they have by region. That's convenient. For example, if we go, let's say, North America, and we'll see those projects. And for example, you can see right away, still a big list. If we can go even to interiors and products and see what they have there. We have 2 filters applied. And you can see that's convenient. That's okay. You can explore exactly what you want. So I would like to remain on residential. And also you can even go by the member, by the architect who did it. Now, I want to point out that it can be good and bad for you. First, from perspective of good is that these guys, it's amazing because when people join your team, it's privilege and also privilege to receive a credit with your name for the product that you led. It increases chances of people willing to be part of your company as an employee, as the architect. But on the other hand, if you think for the negative side, this person people come and go. So a person can leave your company for some reason, or they will leave this world for some reason. So, and you can keep the name there whatsoever because they really did that work, but they're not working there anymore. So that can be a kind of troublesome if you're actually pointing out people who did the job behind the architecture. But the good side of it is that it's a credit. It's will to work with you. So be concerned about of good and bad consequence of choosing the architect name behind the project. Anyways, what I want to say, so there's a lot of work. Filtering is pretty clear. Another thing is when we scroll up, we reveal the extra menu to open, so you can go into the whole menu and explore. I think there's a necessary space here that could improve into the cleaner approach, better hierarchy of organization of delivering what we can choose. But searching system, I want to point out. So when we click searching system, it reveals the whole massive space. It takes massive space. At the same time, it's great that they have searching system, but it's a necessary wasted space. It doesn't look professional and trustworthy, and it's just waste of function. From architecture perspective, we talk about form over function over aesthetics. Right? The function is much more important than aesthetics. And here is not even aesthetics. We didn't respect the function here. It's a coding question. Nevertheless, another problem with the searching system is that if I want to leave this place, I have to either click outside of this field, but if I'll do so, I will go into the project. And I don't really want to go to the project, so I'll lose my track. That's a user experience poorly done. But the improvement is actually, if you explore it long enough, apparently this icon of search is serving you as closing the search button. And my recommendation would be here, if you want to do that, I would recommend to change this icon into cross, so it'll be easy to understand that if I want to leave the searching system, click that icon. At the same time, you don't really need to give that much space for the searching system. Honestly, it doesn't really need to open this menu. It can remain here. We actually can click on this icon and type anything that we want within this line, and we don't need to overwhelm the view. So that is the space for improvement, and it's easy to do. So that's what I wanted to point out. Now let's go into one of those projects that we see here. And let's say the first one, this one. And when we enter again, what they did well, again, they did a great job. They have great real architecture projects. That's impressive. And also what we see here is the full size. That's what we want to show. Good actually composition, the angle of the architecture presentation. The footage could be up to date though. The quality could be up to date. And the whole website, I must say, could be up to date. It looks like a little bit old style, and there's space to improve. Nevertheless, they do exist in the field of market, I believe, for long enough. So that explains their, being, let's say, wise in this field. So other things I want to point out is, again, it's good always to show the full size image, right? So we want to observe the detail. It's compelling. We see one image. When you click, they change the image with another image. That's right thing to do. I will be pointing out later on horizontal scrolling. It can be confusing. So I like that they did just changing image to another image, and they allow us to be compelled and immersed into the experiencing the real project that they did, real building that we're experiencing here. And they already got us actually here, but just exploring one project, you already want to work with them if you like what you see. So they did a good job whatsoever. What I do like, a unique feature that they have, you can see some images have this interesting effect of opening, showing like evening and daytime. And in daytime, they show how the shading can be closed. But in the evening, if you want to open everything, this is how it's going to look like. This is a unique feature that they hold. And this great thing that they have, standing out in a competitive landscape like that. So they did a good job, I must say. Great work. We're not evaluating architecture. Again, we could. But it's not about that. So another thing is what I want to point out is that when we have these down below, you might not even notice these options, but if you explore and scroll down, you actually can go and explore more features that they have or explanation what they have. The only thing is if I'm using MacBook, and when I scroll down my cursor down, it reveals my desktop menu that is uncomfortable to select. Sometimes I have to be precise in order to click these buttons. So be aware of that part where you put your buttons also, because they can a little bit complicating for the user experience. Nevertheless, it's not a bad decision. It just can be extra work from your customer to expect. Now, if you click description, it's good effect. It scrolls down, opens, reveals the whole thing that you want to read. You can go to recognition also. It's a good thing as a award and some related projects that in respect to the projects that we are exploring. What I want to point out, though, from the coding and user experience perspective, you see that menu, it loses its location sometimes. It looks like it's like trying to hold its back and where it's supposed to be fixed, but it has this unprofessional effect of flying around. And that's a small detail, but it does show that you're out of date and maybe not really well done in a coding perspective. Nevertheless, the whole thing is well done. They have unique approach. They have unique menu organization, the filtering system and searching system, and a lot of work. I would say they did job really well. They have space to improve, but it's still good. Now, let's continue to the third one. And here, right away, what we see, and if you remember me addressing Nevera Remark car product, I noticed the same thing in the branding that they have, and these guys repeated the same good approach. You can see when I'm moving cursor around, and you can see that enter is always following the cursor. And the point is, when I hover over this cursor over the concrete pavement, you can see it becomes black. So the whole thing is about this text is that this text is set to the negative, which means it will demonstrate the color negative to the background. And it's a clever approach if you have a footage behind always playing or a photography selection that is hard to predict what you're going to have in the background. They respected that, but unfortunately they didn't use this feature for the whole website, and I'll be pointing out where there's a space for them to improve. And that could actually position them more professional and trustworthy. But it's a small details that you might skip and not pay attention to. But by solving them, you demonstrate the high degree of attention to detail, as well as the trust from the customers unconsciously. Now, what do we see here also, I wanted to say that right away we see the view from the top into the pool, someone is swimming in the water, and we don't really see any architecture around, and we can't really do anything but enter the website. We also can see the name. That's good, at least we see the name. I understand this also could be a signature of their brand, because again, we would expect to see architecture buildings, but we see the pool, and that doesn't really demonstrate any product for the potential customers to experience. But that's the signature that they have that makes them relatively to stand out. At the same time, when you notice when I'm going to click enter, you'll see the brand. And the brand will become as the logo. You'll see ABA, well, you see it becomes collected, and then on the menu they become smaller and put there. It's a clever idea. I like what they did here. So you hover over, you can see it just reveals the logo or collects. I only could improve a little bit here the responsiveness of interaction to make it more smooth and not glitchy to the degree. Nevertheless, they did a relatively good job also with a brand identity and a logo perspective. We can recognize them, though scalability makes it hard a little bit to read and to identify. And I would say still the first brand that we have experienced with you winning in a brand identity and logo. Second, that we experienced a name and surname. I would never recommend to do that, because that you rely on people to read, and you will lose the opportunity to be recognizable in the marketplace in respect to other competitors in the market. And here it's still recognizable, but they could do better job a little bit here. Nevertheless, it's well done. And here we see the simple right away up front. Actually, when you enter, you see projects right away. That's a clever and simple idea. That's all you want. You want to show everything that you do real, as we already pointed out. And what I also have a space here for them to improve is that this thing I experienced that it can be confusing in user experience. I thought we can click all three of them. But then I understand that the view actually is indicating there could be two dots, for example, indicating that you can click grid and index, and maybe bolder title. Differentiate that. It's not a big deal. It's a small thing. Nevertheless, it demonstrates the thought behind the detail and the professional degree of architecture not being taken towards the digital touch point as a website to demonstrate that attention, that deliberate decision. So that might not serve you well, but it's a small detail whatsoever. So what else we have? So they do have a lot of projects. And again, I believe they still have this featured collection. They don't really have all work that we see here, or they just haven't done much yet. Nevertheless, this collection, this set doesn't really require you to have any search system. Nevertheless, it could be a good idea. It's easy to do. I would recommend always to have a search system. We can type, for example, Australia house or maybe pavilion, and then it's just going to show everything that it has a name with a pavilion. So searching system quickly right here without leaving the website is a good idea. Nevertheless, what they did a filtering system, residential, for example. We click residential, we see only residential category. The good thing is that also the mistake would be when you click residential and it will take us to the residential page within the website. That's unnecessary. And they didn't make that mistake. Actually, when you click the filter, we're staying on the same page. It just filters and presents from content management system that they have those categories under that label. And that's the right way to go with. The only, again, the searching system can be a good idea to go with, but they didn't really need it yet, I believe so. So let's go into one of the projects that we, let's say, let's go into Surfside House. So fade away, fade in is a good effect. It can be a little bit, actually, don't play over. I would recommend not to do the fade in too much when you have a lot of projects, because customer, again, will be forced to wait for the effect to happen, but they're actually interested to check projects quickly as they can. So either speed up the fade in, fade out, or make it instant appearance so you will respect the customer experience. Now here, when we get to the project, and it's really interesting and good that we selected this project, and this is what I wanted to point out. We see here clouds in the background that is white, and you can see that barely can see ABA behind, with the clouds being behind because it's white and wide. Yes, it does have some kind of subtle shadow, but it doesn't really do a good work here. Same with those menus. So I cannot really understand what I can click, and I almost haven't noticed that, what I can do within this page. So I recommend, again, to do this negative, to apply negative effect for these fonts, or have something in the background in order to create that predictable background like we had in the first case. That's what I mean by professional. You don't really need to overwhelm, make it simple, and you don't need to have a background depending on the background choice. And by thinking that way, it makes you, again, professional and trustworthy in image. And it's also you're respecting customer experience. You don't want them to just find a way, lost the track, and be not really easily oriented. Nevertheless, the good idea is, again, to always show the full-size image and show the detail. We don't really see much here, actually. Maybe that's the house, one of those. It's not really clear what they're showing here. That's another thing. Well, what should I be paying attention to? Maybe this is one of those houses on the side. I'm not sure. So the selection of photography could be also better thought. Nevertheless, what they tend to show the whole project, the whole process. And this was what I was pointing out. It can be actually good idea and bad idea. It's like too much work to do, unnecessary work, because we're already impressed our customers. But they have the same structure of all projects, which is really good. They always have the image on the right and some kind of description on the left. And sometimes it's maybe too much minimalistic that it can be felt like as if it's not really well done. So that's kind of on the edge. So they have bubbles, the bullets for orientation on how many images we're observing, content we're observing. You can see, for example, again, you can see we're scrolling through on a white background, and I don't see the menus here. I don't see, that's something to pay attention to from user experience and coding. But when we go to the image, for example, also it can be not enough noticeable that actually you can click those and change the image and explore them. There could be more improvement towards the indication on that you can click on this arrow, that you can click on this. But nevertheless, again, good idea to present a real project immersive. You click at a change image right away. It's not sliding, it's not fading, it's fading instantly, quickly. That's a good approach. That's the correct way. And we see right away immersive experience, compelling experience to see what does it look like in real. And that's already winning. That's always the first thing for architecture. And then to show the project process, for example, and that's what I was addressing, that it's not really necessary. I think it can be in vain. For example, these things, customers doesn't really care for the mock-up or for these kind of explosions. Even though I must say, content, we love these images. They look professional, they look cool. We enjoy these kind of demonstrations and explanations. It also can be a good idea because that explains the thought they're thinking behind, and they have a clever logical thinking as well as the aesthetical, the science and art in combination. So what they do is not just out of the blue. There's a reason behind every step. That's something that can demonstrate to a customer that there's a thought behind that. That makes sense. But it just can be too much work to do and might not be necessary because we're already convinced our customers with a real project, real immersive presentation of photography, and that might be not really important to do. Again, mainly because we love a project, we want to do it right. Maybe that's the branding identity that they have, and they just choose to go this way. Totally respect it. But if you're only focusing on getting clients and impressing and remaining professional, love your image in a marketplace, you might not need to do these extra steps. Again, we have imagery that's good. I would say also another thing here, we actually are, again, you can click these things, and I still think it's good to show plan. I find this section informative, actually, to see the location. It depends what kind of customer we have. I think some people want to know, some not. But it's a pleasure to see plans and ideas. You can actually create amazing experiences. Eventually, with a proper website, we could show some kind of hover effect, or hovering over the element and reveal the image of the kitchen. You can play with an interesting approach whatsoever, but that also might not be necessary. So, and imagery, mostly construction process, that's quite something. Also, you can click apparently them. I think really the indication of clicking is important to demonstrate that actually you can click. It must be clearly, so we'll not miss that point. And I would say they could improve a little bit on organization and composition around. I think there may be too much spaces between the images, and it doesn't really look professionally thought as that from the structure and architectural perspective, and that doesn't really make them look relatively good, because the way you are in architecture for a customer and the way you're supposed to be on a website and on other digital touch points to sustain that professional, trustworthy look and feel. Nevertheless, I like what they did. They still convinced us. We want to work with them. Back to top, they have that button. It's really functional. The problem is, again, I can't really see these things, so I want to back to top, but I want to go for projects or so. So there's a space to improve. That's why we go from one to another. Gradually, we start to experience more things where there's space to improve, but we're still learning something from each project, and each project has some kind of unique feature, unique approach that previous didn't have. And now let's continue to the next one. Now here we see is a quite different approach here, and that's the idea behind selecting different architecture firms in order to present to you. Here we see the dark background, and architects tend to gravitate towards clean white and clean black. And here we see the black approach, and it's modern, it's up to date as well. The thing as right away, what I'm paying attention to is about brand identity. As I mentioned, that the title might not be a good idea to go with as the branding. But in this case, it's also that they call themselves Splinter Society, which, and even URL doesn't really hold any kind of architecture title, so indicate exactly what we're focusing upon. In Splinter Society, there might be kind of story behind that, but it doesn't feel like relatable to the customer to my evaluation degree. At the same time, again, I always recommend to have some kind of icon or logo to become competitively standing out in respect to others in a marketplace and be easily memorable in your potential customers. That's always a recommendation. Now here, right away, what we see, the black, and I'll be pointing out some couple spaces to improve, but they have interesting, unique things that others doesn't have. Here they have this horizontal scrolling. So right away, what do we see here? We see featured projects, and mostly I noticed that they do interior design. You can see that the effect when we click the buttons, and again, sometimes I would recommend to do something, the contrast between the arrow and the background, because sometimes it's not clear that it's there. And you can see the indicator photography number. That's quite good. The work that they do, of course, is always good because we see the real, again, deal. So, and we want to explore. The only thing is what I noticed is the image might not be big enough to compel us to explore the detail. I would love to see the detail. And if I'll click it, I'll go to the projects. That's okay. The point is also when I'm clicking, I think might be sliding a little bit slow. And this is what I wanted to point out. First of all, it could be quicker to slide. That will quite win them. And smoother. And why smoother and quicker is because this thing when you do, and if you drag, and I'll show you later, but when you drag and scroll, that can create this weird motion sickness effect that is hard for the human eye to navigate or orient, and when it goes horizontally. That's why for some reason vertically it's easy to orient in imagery. So I did myself back in times for my own portfolio also this horizontal system. I do like it. I understand why it's done, but it can serve poorly a little bit because just human eye can have this really motion sickness effect and it doesn't attract people to explore deeper. It just makes them actually not too willing to go for this thing continuously. So this is something to bear in mind when you do horizontal scrolling. At the same time, what I want to say, the imagery also can suffer in respect to the size. So here we care about the details, so we want to see the full size. So we'll lose a compel effect to attract them to go deeper to the degree. Before going into any project, what I want to say, I want to point out that every time you scroll through, you can see that it's appearing up, the content like kind of slides from bottom to top and fades in. And that's a clever effect. Those details are really important. I will point out another detail. You see when we hover over the element, you can see that the text opacity is increasing 100% and the image opacity drops down. These small details, this fade in, fade out motion, subtleties are actually demonstrating and indicating the professional approach and attention to detail, as well as generating trustworthiness. And that's important. It's a small thing, but it does create an impressive impact. So this is something to pay attention to. They did it really well. And the black background is something that we're witnessing with you as being something new. Other things that I want to say is awards and media. By the way, when we'll go to awards, notice how all this content will scroll a little bit down and fade away, and the new content will fade in and from bottom to top. But it's seamless experience. See, it feels like we're staying on the same page, but we're actually going from page home to page awards. But we don't really experience that as we're leaving the website. It feels like we're on the same website, but it's as if it's the same page. But that's a clever experience. Let me go between media and awards. You can see what happens here. It's amazing, seamless experience, and it's also a clever approach, and I would recommend to do that. Now, in respect to the content, architects tend to present their awards in years. I think they did a good job. Reputation is a big deal, and when you see this, you're already convinced. When I see that they existed from 2002, and they have every year some kind of award, that's already convincing. This is the society life. This is how we live. This is what we are. It's impressive. It's already convincing. So if you have awards, always track them and present them on your website. And with media perspective, another thing even more is that we see a lot of places where their projects were published. And that's already right away winner. I'm like seeing and I'm just trusting them. These guys know what they're doing. They're recognized. And I want to go for them because clearly I just can trust. This trust generation right here. You're generating such a massive trust. So if you have something, focus on awards, focus on media, if you can do that, that will generate a massive trust to you. That's what they did well. Now, if we go back to home, and again, this fade in, fade out is pleasant experience. We could go into one of those projects, but I want to go to the projects itself. When you go to the projects, it's not only featured projects, it's the whole list as we usually experience. And here we see the different layout. I think it's a clever idea also to have 3 columns of content, some description, some text. Again, same effect of opacity drop down or increase of the text. They don't have, again, that much. Oh, actually they have, but they have these numbers previous and next. They actually could improve this one. They don't really need to split this way. They could do the load more, and you're just automatically going to load more projects below to avoid this. In order not to lose, because these will be like next pages, I believe. At the same time, they have enough projects and they do have a filtering system that's convenient. The only thing is, when we click residential, it's great. It feels like we didn't leave the page, but actually we did. It's great that this effect is there, but it's not necessary to create a separate page for residential. It's different URL /residential. It can stay on the same page. So the filtering system can be improved in respect to the content that we see here. At the same time, they should be always including the searching system where, for example, we would like to type Monash University, for example, or university, and it will show all universities. It's convenient. It's easy to do, and always it's not leaving the same page on the same page it's supposed to be. Nevertheless, it's well done. It's well thought. That there's categories, filters, and it's convenient. Now let's go on to the projects. Again, seamless effect of fade in, fade out. It's clever. We're coming back to the carousel, and here we can not only click arrows, which I already pointed out that it could be quicker, better be quicker, in order to avoid this motion sickness effect. Arrows can be better indicated with a contrast in respect to the photography. But when you scroll through quickly also, and it's infinite, it's good, but it can be a motion sickness effect. Also, as I mentioned, I would like to see better detail. I'm not compelled enough. I cannot click the image to see in the full size. So I better recommend to do what other guys did with a full size immersive experience in order to get that sense of being in that space and experiencing and observing the detail. Nevertheless, they still did a good job. Like their work is great, photography is great, good angle, good demonstration, their specific contrast, and they up to date. They did a great job whatsoever. They still impress and won with awards and media, especially. They just win us. Some kind of description they have, and then the other projects to explore. Well done. I think we could continue to the next one, unless I'm missing something here. I think that's it. Let's go to the next one. And again, every firm that we experience with you have unique approach. That's the choice behind my selection. That's the idea, so to say. And every one of them have some kind of space for improvement, but also some features that we see that makes them to look different. Now, this one I like. Of course, it's important to say that they're right-away architects. It's pretty clear. They selected the right-away photography of architecture. That's the way to go with. The real product that they did, the best probably that they love themselves. And that's what they want customers to come for and be impressed with. And as well done. And we see nothing, only on the photography title and the arrow down. So actually, if we'll scroll down, they will bring us to zoomed out mode. And we see this project right away. I think it's right away from the user experience. Well done. So that simple thing right away here. And at the same time, you notice that we have arrows left and right and down. So the idea is that if I click left and right, we're observing the same project and different imagery of it. We cannot really go into this project. That's all you can have here. And I think it's clever. So another only thing is I would recommend to improve is to make it more clear those arrows that you can click and where they are. Maybe some kind of background contrast of difference. But overall, it's clever. Another thing before we go deeper into the project, I want to point out something about the brand. We see again logo MA reverse with an almost carrot red color. And they are similar to the first one that we saw in a square format. So they're memorable. They did this job really well. They're memorable in this way and recognizable. So they did a good branding identity here, as well as color is at play here. Now, other things I want to say is that right away we see the title of the project and the location, and we have this information. And it's interesting. We're on the same page. And when you click info, it reveals the information about this project. Now, you cannot move anywhere else. You can read if you want to. You can even share. That's a clever approach. Good idea about bold, title, and not. So the hierarchy is respected. Correct. At the same time, if we want to leave this, if you hover over outside of the information, you can see the cursor becomes cross. That's the well-thought coding and user experience consideration. Really smooth, really well done. And if I click, it just hides the information. We can go also to the full image. When that does that, it shows the full image of photography if you want to have the full immersive experience. That's what we want to give our customers to experience that. We can leave easily from that. We can go left, right if you want to. Or you can remain in the project and keep on clicking left, right. And if you want to see next project, you scroll down or click that arrow. And that's beautiful. When we're still on the same page. And I think this is really great. You just allow your customers, you don't overwhelm them, you don't give them the number of projects, you let them experience. If they saw enough of one project, they scroll down and they check the other one. This is a really good approach and think, wow, I'm impressed. I want to check more about them. I want to contact them. So you go to the menu. We can go to the menu and we can go actually to the whole project set. When we do that, if you really want, you can see all projects in one place. It's loading and it's also convenient. Also, 2 columns is a good approach. Simple square. You hover over, you can see it's zooming in and giving this kind of opacity drop. And the only problem maybe I would say here is that when you hover over, you can see the title becomes white on white. Better make it red. I think that might be a mistake. The only one mistake that I noticed. Make it their brand identity red in order to make it readable, because that's what you want. When you hover over, you want to make sure that they actually are seeing information that they hover over. That's important. So they can explore everything. Again, they don't really have that much projects. That's why they might not need the searching system and filtering system, but they could include that easily. Eventually, within time, when they will choose to show more projects. That's a good idea to go towards too. But overall, it's impressive. I think they did a really good job here. And I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to show. So what I want to conclude here is that if I would need to choose, for example, again, from brand identity, I would say these two are the one that we just experienced with you. These guys, and also the first one that we saw, they did a great brand identity. I would go with the first as them. And then third one, I would say ABA did a good job. And the fourth would be the rest. I would never recommend name and surname to go with, or some kind of title that is not really them indicating architecture or not really clear. It's not a big deal if you have enough customers already and they spread the word. It's not a big of a deal, but that is still a great approach to go towards for the new potential customers and for memorability and skill in respect to the competitive landscape. And that's great. So overall, also user experience, I'm still leaning forward towards the first website that we have experienced with you. I think just impressive signature footage with clear branding, minimal amount of words, and the right away project that just impressively well done photography with the quality that they have. It's amazing. And I would go with these guys. And when you enter, you just explore the full size, immersive, compelling experience. And they are in good in hierarchy and structure. They're respecting what they stand for as an architects, for structure and architecture, hierarchy and composition, arrangement, ratio, you name it. All that have to be presented also through your website to demonstrate your seriousness, let's say, in professional degree and trustworthy level. And I would say the last one is also good enough. All of them have interesting features to pay attention to learn from. Actually, you could take everything that they did good and combine it into one. And that's what I would like to do, actually. I would love to work on some kind of company with some architecture firm that would like to do the website as great or better than one we see, and take everything that we learn from here and apply and make it the best as we can. So that's all I wanted to say here, guys. Thank you for your attention. I will continue to the next video, and there will be check that out also. There will be 5 other architecture firms that I'm going to be paying attention to. They have different value to learn from, and also different things for them to improve. And that's it I want to say. So you also want to say that we covered all 3 expertise that I'm holding from perspective of brand identity, interface design, and web development, evaluating those architecture fields. And it's exciting to see all of them together. I like that bridging between business goals and user needs of my customers and filling that gap, and evaluating those websites of different fields, like we did with architecture before, we actually did with automotive field, which you can find on my YouTube also. We did automotive evaluation. One was Polestar, another one was Nevera Remark. We focused on one project, one product, one brand. But here we did 5 per 1 video of architecture field, and we'll continue with the next one. Check the other one actually to see how the 5 architecture companies that I'll be evaluating, and all of them will have different feature to point out. Also, you can check I created new playlists, new collection, which is Cruising Indoors Elite. First one that I put there. AM Service Series is all about projects that I did for my clients, and Cruising Indoors is where actually, as I mentioned, I'm showing the whole thing, how I did it from brand identity, interface design, and web development. This client is in Sydney, Australia, and I did the whole thing on all 3 expertise that I hold. And you will also see how blogging is done, where we have filtering and searching systems well done. That's why I was pointing out in architecture that this feature is also important to pay attention to as well. And that's it. Also, you can find me on Behance, guys, or anywhere else on social media with the same name. And I am grateful. Thank you, guys, for your attention. I hope this was helpful and interesting, and you get value out of that. And I will continue to the next video with 5 architecture firms. You all continue.